Welcome to Ultra Life Today. I'm Josh Bellew. Thanks for joining us again. I'm here with CEO of Ultra Botanica, Adam Payne. I am the Chief Product Evangelist, a title that Adam dubbed me with. And we've got Dr. J. Dunn here. And I'm going to do a quick little teaser before I introduce her. And we're going to go into her fabulous origin story. But think about a statement like this that we'll get to later in the hour. Discover why you are the way you are and change your life by activating your happy genes. I can't wait to get there, Doc, because that is like a statement that goes, whoa, sign me up. So anyway,
I'm actually, Josh, I'm really looking forward to getting Dr. Dunn in here on the show. She has so many interesting ideas around methylated genes and how we can actually work with the deck of cards that we've been dealt in life, right? Just because we have maybe a bad deck of cards on the genes doesn't mean we have to live a bad deck of card life. I'll give you myself as an example. I have all of the recessive genes around B vitamins, right? And that has given me, learning that at this point in my life has given me so much ammunition to be able to bring outside supplementation into my life that actually has a meaningful impact on my daily quality of life. And Absolutely. So, Dr. Dunn, are you there with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much.
Hey, Dr. Dunn.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome to Ultra Life Today. So where are you located? What part of the country are you in?
I'm in near the Atlanta area, up near Lake Lanier, out in the woods.
How's the weather been out there over the summer?
It's really pretty. It's very pretty this time of year. Like all the flowers are in bloom and the trees are green and green and lush. So it's nice.
I know where our next broadcast is going to take place.
Yeah, come on down.
There you go.
Oh yeah. Come on in.
So everybody has an origin story. I came into, I'm a pharmaceutical, I'm a hippie turned pharmaceutical guy. And then I got into natural health, kicking and screaming. God had a different idea about what my life was going to be about than being pharmaceutical development. I think everybody that's interesting has a life story. How did you, give us a little bit of background? How did you get involved in what you're doing today? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah. I don't want to draw it out too long, but like you said,
many
of us get into. You do? Okay, I'll just ramble then.
We've got time.
Okay. I was born in. No, I'm kidding. Basically, it was a dark and stormy night. I ended up with some health issues in my 20s, and I had been raised in the medical model, and that's all I really knew. But they just didn't really have any good answers for me. I had a lot of headaches and nausea and fatigue and just felt lousy and hurt all over. And when I went to the medical doctors, they said, oh, they didn't know, they did all this work, all this blood work, et cetera, and said, we don't know. Here's a prescription for headaches. Here's a painkiller.
Symptom relief, right? You have this symptom, here's the relief, right?
Yeah. And even back then, it just struck me as wrong. There's something wrong with me. You're just covering up a symptom. I don't get it. I just kind of lost faith pretty much right then and there in the medical establishment. It's like, gosh, well, okay, what do I do? So I started looking at maybe McDonald's hamburgers and shakes weren't the best diet. Maybe I should look at that. And I started eating, you read all about how you're supposed to eat more fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, and that's, a good thing. So I started doing that, and I felt worse. I got even worse headaches and worse. Yeah. So I'm like, what is that? I'm so confused now. So I went to a health food store, started looking on the shelves, and I'm confused. I'm like, there's 20 brands of vitamin C. There's 20 brands of vitamin D, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm like, where do you start? And so I talked to the woman at the health food store, and she said, have you ever tried chiropractic? And I was like, what does that have to do with nausea and headaches and fatigue? And she said,
that's interesting.
Surprised what chiropractors can do. And I said, well, I'm open, at this point. So I went to a chiropractor, got adjusted, no help. And so I kind of crossed that off.
You're supposed to say, I went to the chiropractor, he aligned my spine, and I felt so much better, and life was beautiful. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it didn't work
go
that
ahead.
way.
And I could
It
eat
didn't work that
McDonald's
way.
again.
Oh, wow.
No.
Yeah, as long as I keep adjusted, I can go eat McDonald's. It's all good.
There you go.
No,
That's what.
but I had a friend who said, I have this chiropractor who does a little bit of different stuff. He does this muscle testing thing. And I was like, well, I'm open. He said, he's brilliant. You should go see him. And I'm like, okay.
Oh,
So I'm laying on
interesting.
the table and he's got my arm up in the air and he's pushing on it. And I'm like, oh God, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But within 10 minutes, he told me exactly what was wrong with me and exactly why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And he told me what to do about it, how to change my diet, what supplements to take, and adjusted me. And then within a week, I felt like a whole new human being. So I was like, okay, what was that? That was you.
So, what he prescribed to you is probably not, it's not going to fit everybody. What did he suggest you change? I mean, basically, what was the dietary change?
Well, the dietary change was roughage. He said, stay away from the roughage. You've got an ileocecal valve problem. Your ileocecal valve's open, which is the valve that goes between the small and large intestine. Eat key foods, stay away from the sugars. Yeah, McDonald's not a good idea. So kind of softer food diet. And that really, really helped. Within a week, I felt a whole lot better. And then supplements for my adrenals, because I was a single mother and I was working full time. And, it was a lot of stress in my life. So my adrenals were pretty trashed. And so he gave me some support for that. And I was like, what was that? Are you guys familiar with kinesiology or muscle testing?
Yeah. We know. In fact, our last guest that we had just broadcast is a naturopath by the name of Kinsey Taylor, and she has a clinic here in Oklahoma City, and her whole thing is kinesiology, right? Muscle testing and looking at different body response using a kinesiology approach. Yeah, it's I used to think it was kind of bizarre, out of the box witchcraft kind of thing, but it's not. It's a validated system that you can actually query the body in terms of what's going on and from a response metric.
Yeah, exactly. It's just another tool for speaking to gathering information and speaking to the body through the nervous system. And so, I got pretty excited about that and decided to become one. And
so you became a chiropractor because of this experience.
Yeah, well, I did. Yeah, at first I was a kinesiologist and started having incredible results with people, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know, what was going on inside the body. I could just tell them what to do and what to take. But so I went off to chiropractic school after that because I got the bug. I wanted to hear from patients every day. I feel better. Thank you for changing my life. It's like, oh man, that's my dopamine hit. That's it.
Right on.
And it sounds like you guys too. You're the same way. You're about helping people and making a difference in the world and changing things. So it's some of us
so
are
how
built
long?
that way.
How long ago was the? How many years ago did you get your chiropractic degree?
Well, I got my kinesiology degree in 1988 and then graduated from Palmer Chiropractic in 1995 and started practicing. But I wasn't a traditional chiropractor. I did everything. I did all the kinesiology, nutrition, emotional work.
So it's been almost 30 years that you've been involved in this. But that's not the end of your story. But that's not the end of your story here. No. So tell us more. What happened? What drove this next phase of your life?
Really, you have really good questions. You ever thought I started to, it's like I had fantastic results, amazing results, and I had a year waiting list for people to get in, but I still had some people that didn't respond to anything I did, and I was one of those. I was still having depression. I had lifelong depression. And I never could really pull myself out of it, no matter what I did. Nutrition, emotional work, nothing.
Was it cyclical kind of depression? So you go into phases and like you'd be down and then you'd be kind of up. Was it manic or was it just flat across the board? You felt
It was, it was pretty major. Like if this is happy, normal here, I was always kind of down here trying to bump myself up there. And then another thing that we all have these situations in our lives, but this one was really interesting. My father died when he was 55 of lung cancer. He did everything he could to get it, smoking, drinking, not eating well. And
I'm sorry.
his best friend did the same thing, and he ended up marrying my mom and lived another 30 years doing the same thing. So it's like the only thing you can
why did your dad succumb to these influences and your stepfather didn't? Right. Great question.
Yeah, the big
genetics.
Question, right?
Yeah.
It's so neat that you were observing these things, though, and I love that. It's like you're looking at these two things and going, no, wait a minute. I had an uncle that used to wake up and have a shot of whiskey every morning, and at 75 years old, he could wrestle all three of me and my nephews down on the floor and just beat the heck out of us. And it was like, how do people do that? Lived on chicken fried steak and gravy.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's what I'm talking about. It's that genetic thing that we've known about, like, okay, we just go, that's good genes. And then we park it over there and we don't know how to work with it. But, and then the third thing, the patients that didn't respond to everything, I thought it's gotta be genetics or we're missing a piece. And then my father's story and then my story. And I got my genes tested. So I went to 23andMe. But backing up, I heard the word methylation, which you guys, we talked about a little bit pre-show.
Yep.
Right.
I kept hearing that word. I kept hearing the word methylation. I'm like, what is that? I got to do a deep dive into that. So I started researching that, and I came across this cool video. It was by a guy named Rich von Konynenberg. And I remember I'm sitting in my pajamas and I'm watching this video, and my mouth is open. I'm like, this is it. And I got chills because I knew this was the missing piece to these questions.
So he was talking. What was the? We can put an outtake to that video. What was the name of the video of the presentation? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but if you Google Rich von Konynenberg, he's dead now, and so there were only a couple of videos he did. It was a talk over in Europe somewhere.
But so he was talking about methylated genes and how they affect the human biology.
Yeah, he got started. I think he was I want to say he was not even a medical doctor, a PhD. His son had myalgic encephalitis, which we know as chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia, kind of combo. And he started taking a deep dive into understanding the biochemical pathways in the body and how our genes can interfere with those and lead to these kind of conditions. So I was like, oh my God, he's making so much sense. And I started to see how we can look at genes in a biochemical pathway and figure out how to work with those genes and take certain nutrients to upregulate, where you might be missing. You talked about, you having a B vitamin issue with your genetics and how you need higher than normal levels of B vitamins to kind of normalize. And I need
methylated B vitamins across the board because I'm also completely recessive on my methylation genes. So I was dealt like the worst possible hand in terms of B vitamins and methylation. It's just bad. Yeah. Literally, if I don't take a B vitamin supplement, I will be out of steam by 1:00 in the afternoon in a basket case. It's just and it's just horrible. It's just really bad.
Yeah.
But this inspired, it blew your mind, and then you took action around this whole idea of methylated genes. And it wasn't small action. What became of this revelation for you, Dr. Dunn?
Well, I thought if this can answer the questions that I had, about my dad, about my depression, about the patients that were not responding, then we're onto something. And sure enough, it did. So I did my 23andMe, gene testing, and then got a report from a company called Genetic Genie, which it only gave me 30 genes, but it was a way to start, and it was a free report. And I was like, okay, I have the vitamin D receptor variant where I don't absorb vitamin D. It's,
interesting.
Homozygous. So, you get one gene from mom, one gene from dad, and if you have both genes that are a variant, it'll cause a low-functioning enzyme. And so I have a low-functioning vitamin D receptor, so I can't absorb vitamin D. So, and it made sense because every time I got my vitamin D tested, it was always in the toilet. It was always like really low. No matter how much vitamin D I took, not happening for me because I couldn't absorb it. So it reduces your ability to absorb vitamin D by about 70% when you have that variant.
Okay, we've got to continue this fascinating story in just a second, Adam. Is it okay if we take a quick break? So here we are coming up on the end of our first segment with Dr. J. Dunn, myhappygenes.com. I'm Josh Bellew, Adam Payne, CEO of Ultra Botanica, and Dr. J. Dunn will be right back. Welcome back to Ultra Life Today. We have been spending some time with Dr. J. Dunn of myhappygenes.com. I'm Josh Bellew. I'm here with Adam Payne, the CEO of Ultra Botanica. And just to recap, we've heard this amazing story of visiting a kinesiologist, having a journey of healing in your life, discovering then that genes actually affect an individual's personal health in a way. And so you began to go down that beautiful rabbit hole of discovering what genes are doing. And that's kind of where we stopped the last segment. So let's pick up there and keep going.
Yeah, you got me on pins and needles here, Doc, because this whole idea of measuring genes and how that can inform. I think so many of us are absolutely terrified about getting our genes tested because we think the government's now going to know about us and we will learn, and then they're going to use that information to deny me treatment, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a true believer. That's kind of weird to say. I'm a believer in learning as much as possible about our genes to help us make informed nutritional and medical choices about our lives. So you were floored by that talk by what was his name again? The guy that made the talk.
Dr. Rich von Konynenberg.
So what did you do with that information? It sounds like you didn't sit still.
No, I was like, God, I got to check this out because it was a paradigm shift. It was like, wow, like you say, genes, we're terrified. We're terrified of learning that we might have a gene for Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or whatever. But sure. This was the first time I had heard the concept that you can actually change the expression of your genes. Your genes don't change, but you can change how they express, turn them on, turn them off. And that was a new concept to me. The whole methylation, which we had talked about a little bit, and I'll say more about that in a minute, but essentially what it does is turn genes on and turn them off. And so I was like, wow, turning genes on, turning them off. That was all new to me. But
so you're talking about epigenetic changes, right? In gene expression. Is that?
Yeah.
So this is actually not just, hey, here's the deck of cards you have, live with it. This is, here's the deck of cards that you have. Let's modify the way that your genes are expressing themselves. We play a little bit with this idea with some of our oncology adjunctive support stuff, and trying to encourage cells to change their methylation state and their gene expressioning. But you're talking about this for fundamental things that are going on in the body right now. So this is something new. I don't think I've heard anybody else talk about. And is that what you're saying? Is that you're saying let's look at these genes and let's change the methylation state of the expression? Yeah,
and it's not always about methylation, but I did come up with a system of looking at this called holistic methylation, which looks at more than just the methylation cycle. It looks at the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain and the nitric oxide pathway and histamine breakdown. We look at genetic variants in these biochemical pathways in the body. And through that lens, you can really understand what you said, why you are the way you are. So to kind of unpack that for a minute. So
Sure.
the vitamin D receptor that I was kind of talking about, when I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, what is that? What does that mean? And how do we do something about that? Is that just, sorry, sucks to be you? Or can we do something?
So what did you find out? So did you, based upon the 21andMe work, you identified some genes that the D vitamin, was it a metabolism error or is it an absorption error?
Neither. No, it's a receptor. So you have
the receptor.
You can absorb vitamin D all day long in the gut, but can't attach to the receptor. The receptor's like this.
Yeah,
so
how do you trigger that?
So it can take in the vitamin D. That was.
I
have the
wait
secret.
to hear.
You want it?
So what did you do?
Yeah.
Want to hear it? So at first, I started to look at what is the vitamin D receptor and where's the research on it? What studies have been done? What is it associated with? And so I went to a website called SNPpedia, SNPEDIA. And that's where the SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. These are just changes in your DNA that
These
can
are
lead
like
to imbalance.
parts of the gene. These are like the little parts of the gene that get transcribed, right? Yes.
Yeah. So your genes are your blueprint that tell your body to do something. If those genes if you have a variation in that gene and it gives the wrong code to your body, whatever that code is for, whatever that genetic code is telling your body to do, will not be produced the same way. So when you have a genetic variant that's homozygous, from both parents got the wrong code, now that gene that it codes for, the enzyme that gene codes for, will be reduced in its activity by about 70%. That's a pretty big hit. When you look at
that is a huge hit. And for something fundamental like vitamin D, your experience was this. I mean, just one of the levels of your experience, because I'm sure there are many more issues metabolically, organ-wise, at so many different levels. And vitamin D is fundamental for cell wall integrity, right?
I mean, so many things.
Yeah, I've just got to ask, did the vitamin D thing, was that one of the things that was your key to beginning to move that depression? I had a feeling, because when I get high amounts of vitamin D, I feel good.
So,
right.
I'm doing the same thing. So I have severe issues with my nerves because of my B vitamin issue. And one of the things I've recently started to supplement with is vitamin D. I think that might be coming through backwards. It looks backwards on my screen, but I'm doing 20,000 units of vitamin D per day to supplement myself.
That's a lot. And especially if you might even have the vitamin D receptor variant that you need.
I might.
Cofactors. So here's the plot.
So what did you learn and what did you do? Go on. So you went to the SNP library.
Yes. And I found this study. One of the first studies I found said that when you have a vitamin D receptor variant, it makes you more susceptible to lung cancer when you smoke. And I went,
interesting.
Right back. Clue number 2 was the vitamin D, once you are able to absorb vitamin D through the receptor, it turns on your immune system so you fight infections. So people with genetic variants here have chronic infections.
Goodness.
So that was my chronic fatigue syndrome.
Clue number 2.
Epstein-Barr virus. Clue number 2. Number 3 was it upregulates the body, turning tryptophan into serotonin and tyrosine
the
into
happy
dopamine.
Stuff.
And I went,
so you're serotonin.
Wow.
Serotonin deficient, tryptophan, dopamine, low energy.
Exactly. My brain could not make the neurotransmitters correctly. And my head practically exploded. And I went, oh my God, this explains so much. And it gave me, first of all, it gave me compassion, the knowledge that it wasn't my fault. I wasn't making it up. I wasn't, just a slacker. And second of all, I was determined to find the cofactors. How do we get the vitamin D in there? And so scouring the literature, looking and looking and looking, finally found this study that showed the cofactors, which means that these are nutrients that make that receptor work differently. So here's the receptors like this. Vitamin D trying to get in, can't get in. The cofactors open it up, vitamin D can get in, and then it does its thing, right? The cofactors.
I was gonna say, tell us about what some of those are.
They're vitamins. Oh, you really want to know?
So, Dr. Dunn, what are
Yes.
the vitamin D cofactors that you found?
It's a good question. Vitamin K2 was the first one, and vitamin A was the other. This is what we call a heterodimer. So half the receptor is a vitamin A receptor, and half of it is vitamin D. But K2, more importantly, when you open up that receptor, pull in vitamin D, the body also mobilizes minerals. And so the K2 is kind of like the director. It says, all right, minerals go to the bone, out of the arteries, out of the connective tissue or kidneys, where you can accumulate minerals in the wrong way. So K2, which is different from K1. K1 comes from like green leafy vegetables. K2 comes from
we're very
fermentation.
We use MK7, the in a number of different formulas that we make. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure why, but I know that. And the A, interesting. And so, what was so you learned about this? Did you run to the health food store and buy vitamin A and K2?
Yes. So I was the
what
first.
Happened?
I was the first experiment. Bam! My brain chemistry came on, and I went,
"What?
I think this is happy."
Give us a real time there. When you started taking the supplementation of this cofactor and the vitamin D together, how quickly did you experience a difference in your life? Oh my goodness.
It was within 2 days. And then within 2 weeks, my chronic fatigue syndrome gone.
Wow.
It was like the Epstein-Barr virus. Because now my T cells are turning on and my body's fighting infection. And so my brain exploded. I was like, oh my gosh, all this time, I'm a functional medicine practitioner. I'm fighting viruses. I'm fighting bacteria, yeast, fungus, all the things, leaky gut. I'm trained in all that stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, if we just turn the body on and get it doing it, holy moly, I don't have to micromanage this body. I can get to the underlying cause, why that infection is there in the first place, why my brain wasn't making transmitters. And so it's a very
let me ask you a quick question, because you brought up so many things.
On a scale of, I got Josh. Hold on, Josh. Hold on, Josh. You're blowing my mind here. I mean, seriously, you went from life sucks to my brain is functioning. Yes. You must have felt like a kid in a candy store. Like totally. Your brain now feels like I'm now in a playground. I can function. I have happy thoughts. My life is good. You must have been buzzing with excitement in life.
Absolutely. It changed everything. And, my story was, I had trauma as a kid, or I had a mean dad, or, we fill in the story to fit our physiology.
We give a reason for why I am.
Right. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that story really isn't that true or that important. Everybody's got crappy memories.
That's right.
We all have like traumas that we've dealt with. But when my physiology changed, I looked at those things very differently. I was like, it wasn't personal, and that's not who I am. It's not defining me. But I couldn't have ever gotten there.
Yeah.
Physiology. Yeah, it was biochemical. And so I went, oh my God, how many other genes can we do this with? How, where do we find the
That's where I was going. You took my question away, Doc. That's perfect. Yeah. Can you give us an example? And we've got a couple of minutes left right here before we go to our next segment. Can you give us an example? I mean, I would assume when you thought about this and made this discovery for yourself, you made the leap, just like you said, to, what else can we do? Do people come to you from all over the world with things that they have never been able to conquer, and all of a sudden you have this key that unlocks the door?
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. That was when I was in practice. I was seeing stunning results with things like ALS, Parkinson's, MS.
What?
When we looked at it through the lens of genetics, we were able to get to those underlying causes, where I hadn't really made a lot of headway with those kind of things before that. It was like, bam, they were all started to
So you're essentially doing what the functional docs kind of dream of, which is let's look at the genome. Let's look at your nutrient profile. Let's look at your diseases and symptoms, and let's get down to the metabolic layer of how you are functionally processing things and address those defects with either methylated vitamins, in that case, or with vitamins plus the cofactors necessary in order to repair those defects in metabolism.
Wow. We are listening to the most fascinating interview with Dr. J. Dunn of myhappygenes.com, and that is not Calvin Klein Genes. That is Genes. Adam Payne, CEO of Ultra Botanica. I'm Josh Bellew with Ultra Botanica, and we can't wait for you to join us next week on another segment of Ultra Life Today. As a matter of fact, 2 more with Dr. J. Dunn. And again, myhappygenes.com is how you can reach her.